when I started thinking about how I want to show up, I said, I'm either going to inspire you, scare you, or scar you with my presence, my comments, or what I wear. But one thing that won't happen is you won't forget me, right? You won't forget the delivery of the message, whether it's helping you, whether it's helping technology or security. You should not forget the message because it'll be ingrained in your head. You'll see a bright suit and some guy jibber jabbering. So I decided show up and show out.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. I get to meet the most interesting people all across the world, especially because our podcast is hosted virtually for the most part. And I got to meet someone that I would say is special, not just because of what they know, because of how they look, but they're special because they're constantly reinventing themselves and making themselves even more special and better. And also always giving back. My special guest for this episode is Mel Reyes. Mel is a global executive. He's actually training and building the next wave of executives as we speak. He's got a track record of helping companies grow and scale not only teams, but also in revenue. For example, he's helped companies take their $3 billion portfolio to $12 billion, which is an amazing feat. And also, Mel, you have been working as an executive leadership coach. You got some awards, you got some patents, you're president of SoCal ISSA. I mean, I could go on and on and on with introductions, but most importantly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I'll say it's beyond humbling to listen to a recap of shit that I just do, right? Like it's you know, there's usually no purpose in the award side of it. It's more in just delivering. So to me, it's every one of those. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I did that.
It's all about providing value. And, you know, one of the things that you provided me before we even spoke was you came in on our first call with like tons of energy. You're dressed to the nines, still dressed to the nines. So what is your superpower? Is it being magnetic?
I came to the conclusion that what I thought was the right direction or the right path, following in line, staying within the guardrails, was the right way to go, right? Executive leadership, you've got strategy, you've got components around that, you've got the hierarchies, right? And this is a multicultural thing, right? So if you look at West, East, and all around the world, you've got certain demeanor and certain characteristics that you have to follow. 6-7 years ago, frustrated, exhausted, fighting the fight in IT, security, this, that, the other. I was like, why? Why can't I just show up? Why can't I just be me? Why do I have to, curtsy every time I see a certain leader? And I started to be just very open and pretty candid, as opposed to saying, we have some opportunities to resolve some issues around how we implement our fraud authentication program. I would say our fraud authentication program is broken. It's broken at point A, point C, and point F. We need $500,000 to fix it. How do we go about it? Right. And they're just getting very practical about my delivery. Then I realized, I said, I could show up in my pinstripe suits and in my, I had a couple of suits custom made about 8-10 years ago because I'm short, I'm a little stout, this, that, the other, and nothing ever really fit me right. So I made an investment because that's what you do, right? You make an investment. Then I was like, why do I have to be like color within the boundaries of everything? Why don't I just go a little edgy? And then I started to think about how I wanted to show up. And when I started thinking about how I wanted to show up, I said, I'm either going to inspire you, scare you, or scar you with my presence, my comments, or what I wear. But one thing that won't happen is you won't forget me, right? You won't forget the delivery of the message, whether it's helping you, whether it's helping technology or security. You should not forget the message because it'll be ingrained in your head. You'll see a bright suit and some guy jibber jabbering. And to me, if I have to leverage those kinds of techniques to get into people's heads, lower their guard, be truthful, be open on what the real issues are within a team, an organization, or themselves. So I decided show up and show out. And that's what I do.
I think there's nothing better. I remember one of my friends telling me that, hey, Ron, you kind of look boxy. Like you go to the stores, you don't customize, your own fit. You just show up and you look super boxy. So what he did was he took me to one of my favorite stores, Express, and he got me a small shirt. And I never wore a size small ever before in my life. And I felt like I was like about to like rip out of the shirt because it was so small. But he was like, no, stand up straight and own it. Like no matter the clothes, you got to be you. And after I had that opportunity, he took me to the store and just showed me that, even if something's tight, if something's baggy, it's about how I present myself in it, how I feel inside, but how I also display it on the outside.
Amen. Amen. Not gonna lie, I always wear. I have about 10 white hoodies, depending on the season, right? Because I'm like, why do I need to show up in a blazer? Why do I need to show up in just a shirt? I want to show up this way, and it's hot as F out here in California, but I'm okay because I'm comfortable. And when you see me out, at conferences or different meetings. Some people are expecting outrageous things and this, that, the other. Sometimes I just show up. I'm like, yep, it's just going to be me, my white hoodie, my linen pants, right? I'm like, I just want to be casual today. Or sometimes, and for me, it was, how do I feel, right? How do I think? And I do respect the situation, right? I'm not showing up to a wedding in shorts, right? But I also want to be mindful of where, and I've gone through a whole cycle of clothes in the last 5+ years, right? Changing your wardrobe, how you present yourself, how tight or how fitting or how it makes a huge difference on your confidence. And to me, that level of confidence for me, I'm like, I don't care. You judge me, right? Go ahead and judge me. Bye. I don't want to talk to you, right? If you're going to judge me on my exterior, not my message or anything else, then you've clearly defined your boundaries, right? And if you can't handle it, it's not on me.
You brought up not showing up to a wedding in shorts, which I think is an important reference because I think that the workplace is a place for you to show up how you are for the most part. Like if one of my team members were to show up on a Zoom and not wear a shirt, that might not fly too well because there's team members. You got to respect the team. And like, there's the golden rule, which is do unto others, which want to be done to yourself. But then there's the platinum rule, which is like, hey, treat others the way that they would like to be treated. And I think that when you look at the workplace, we're always balancing those two things. Has there ever been like situations for you where you've been on one side of the line, but wished you were on the other?
I had one company that I worked at where you had to wear a tie. We were in IT security, DevSecOps. It was a manufacturing group. And we were at the headquarters. No, it was a manufacturing group. And we were at the headquarters and I would visit all of the sites around the United States, but I still had to wear a tie. And how they enforced it was a little odd. HR would walk around the floor and they would ding you with a note or comment if you weren't wearing a tie. Here I am trying to build a dynamic new e-commerce, API, multi-factor, that security, rebuilding a subset of about 20 different companies and plants. into a uniform like EDR and a bunch of other things. And I'm sitting there, thick necked, having to wear a tie. Right. So every now and then I would loosen the tie. And then I'd have to look out the office. I'm like, oh, I got to tighten it up because, so-and-so may be walking by. And then I've been in extremes where, and there's been some incredible, beautiful souls in my life that have just really kind of exemplified the show up and show out. Right. I have folks who identified, men who identified as women who would show up dressed as a woman. And I'm like, let's go. You do you. Right. Because to me, having the courage and having the ability to be able to show up with what you think and is core to you, that's where it is. It's that level of respect for people, for what their beliefs are and everything else. If you can't have that, then you're not going to be able to build relationships. You're not going to be able to keep relationships, and you're not going to be able to inspire, elevate, or educate, because all you're going to be doing is thinking about that food in their beard or how they dress, or that your beliefs, contradict theirs. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Nobody has time for that. Like, we need to show up. We need to pull everybody together and get work done.
There's two types of people that really want to get work in general, at least two types of people that, I speak to regularly. One is the person that's trying to get into the cybersecurity space, the person that's more junior in their career. They're either trying to break in or, make their first pivot. And then the other one are the more senior cybersecurity practitioners that want to become an executive, like a CISO or SVP. What would you recommend for, let's start with the junior, contributors out there. What would you recommend for them to invest in for, developing their authenticity, and while also respecting some of the conservative values and cultures of some of the organizations?
So let me put an umbrella over both of them to start. Go for your underwater basket weaving certification and leave cyber. No, I'm kidding. I know we probably want to dive into a couple of things, but one of the things that I've seen in a lot of the groups that I work with is there's an excitement of opportunity. There's an excitement within the industry on what you can do within cybersecurity. You've got multiple domains. You've got a ton of different opportunities. But you also have a gap in the requirements, in the needs. And so that there's a little bit of a shift in what companies and what roles are available versus the talent pool and the affordability. The whole other, right? I'll tap into that in a second. So just like you were picking up a new hobby, right? Hey, I want to learn parasailing. You don't buy a boat and buy a parachute and I just feel like I'm parasailing, right? No, you take the training, you put in the work, you try to learn from other folks and you try to do that. And then maybe you make an investment, a big investment in I'm going to go into the competition on, parasailing, swooping or whatever, right? Or snowboarding or skiing or anything else, right? And that investment is a passion play, right? But you need a sustainability model, right? You need to say, what can I do now so that I can work on that passion play, right? And I'll tell you, there are plenty of years where I would work so hard during the day that I would sit on the couch just drooling from exhaustion, right? And I burnt out the battery on my remote, right? So for me, when you're starting off, it's draining. Right. You have to keep on top of what segment do I look at? Am I more hands-on? Am I more risk? Am I more this? Learning. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's what you want to put your focus on, get guidance from people. Hey, what interests you more? Are you a deep down Python coder? Do you know how to do network segmentation, IP tracing, blah, blah, blah? Are you have you dabbled into dark web, blah, blah, blah? What is it that you're interested in? And then you put a little bit of focus on that. You still get experience or try to do things on, within your job. If you have a job, go to the IT department. It's like, hey, can I sit in on a call where you guys are talking about the network, network scans, or anything else, or right? But you'll never get anywhere unless you go cross-functional onto another group, which is going to tie into some of the stuff that I wanted to share as well. So early on in your career, you got to stay hungry, right? Sleep is optional. I say it all the time. Find the right mentors and groups. I used to say, so Cal, we just wrapped up our first mentoring group. Phenomenal, right? We had college, mid-career, and senior level mentoring, and it was incredible. We're going to kick it off again. Find those groups. Find the groups that are actually going to help you and guide you, provide you the frameworks, the study guides, or anything else. Now let's jump to the mid or senior level folks. Market is rough. The market is rough. I may or may not have been a little boisterous last year or beginning of the year when I saw an MSSP who in their job description described managing higher education clients, and they wanted a CISO. And I won't throw out the numbers, and you can probably, but it was, let's say, half, if not a third, of what they should have been paying for that role. So then I said 40 higher education, right, universities and colleges. Then I went and I saw some of them. I just wanted to pick up the phone and call them, be like, do you know that the group that is securing your systems is actually paying 1/4 or wants to pay 1/3 or 1/4 of what a qualified security leader and engineer, and it was hands-on role too on top of it, right? So it wasn't just, I'm a pretty face CISO, right? So senior leaders, mid to senior leaders have to reinvent themselves. And that's part of that journey that I've had to do as I went through. Well, I started off literally a tech support person. Then it was networking. Then it was coding. And then it was, right. So I had to keep changing domains, but that didn't happen during work hours. Right. Most recently, in the last few years, I realized I love coaching. I love people. I love to take the skills of team building. And as opposed to going into your standard, masters in XYZ for tech or cybersecurity or AI or blah, 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 I decided to go into actual professional coaching and training, right? So, certified professional coaching, and all the ACC, PCC, and all the other ones, because then I could take my decades of experience in IT security and then align it with a framework that is about personal and professional development. And that's where I am now. So I'm a therapist. I'm a coach. I'm a quote unquote leader. I'm also an ordained minister. We can talk about that one later.
I love that. And I would imagine that you also got some amazing sales chops as well, having to build your business. That's one of the things that I think security practitioners as a whole, especially the people that want to become CISOs, could double down on, is selling ideas, selling strategies, and also selling products, because that's what you're ultimately doing with your board or your stakeholders when you're asking to buy something. So for the people that are trying to transition to leaders, executives in the cybersecurity space, what piece of advice would you have for them to lean into being themselves, but also balancing the needs of the organization?
Ron, it wasn't until just recently that I decided that I think I might want to cross over to the dark side. And you said the buzzword. It's a 4-letter to pay plural. It's a 4-letter word, right? And it's not risk.
It's the S word, right?
It's the S word, right? 5-letter word, whatever. Sales, right? And what I've been able to figure out, and I'm like, and there's a whole flush of emotions that come through when I figured this out. I I'm me. I realized I am my own brand. I'm my obnoxiousness. I'm this, I'm that. I value my experience. I value protecting my teams. I value what I've been able to deliver. And what I learned in the last decade or so is we live in a world of qualifiables, right? You look at a job description. Can I meet those criteria? Perfect. That's your 60, 70, 80% mindset. But then you go to the dark side, right? In sales, and they work on quantifiables, right? OKRs, KPIs, deliverables, pipeline, blah, blah, blah. I never wanted to be, and I love folks who do this. I love VARs. I love people who work on referral-based things. I appreciate them. I see their drive, right? Hopefully they're being genuine about the value that whatever they're pitching brings to you. But I don't want to be pigeonholed into, I've got the best bread slicer on the planet. You got to buy from me because it's my reputation, my experience on the line. So I never wanted to get into sales, go to market or otherwise. I wanted to get into solutioning. And crazy as it sounds, 2-3 years out of college, I decided to create MR Technical Solutions, Mel Reyes. And I would look at situations and I wouldn't come in with preconceived notions. You have to be bought into the technology, the stack, the solution, the leadership and everything else. And if you are, then perfect. When you come to the point where you're mid-career or senior and you've been in tech the whole time, you work in the qualifiable or the technical side of things, right? Think about doing that cross-functional learning. Reach out to the legal department, reach out to the CRO, reach out to all of the other groups that are within your organization or that are in that role in another organization, and just ask them simple questions. Tell me a story. And I coach a lot of people on very simple, and I'll thank a major organization for giving me the baseline framework for this, but I call it SPAR. It's 3 sections. And I tell everybody to do this. Start a spreadsheet so you can outline your experience. What was the situation or the project? I had to, I'm sorry to see if I can, we had a major networking upgrade at one of my first jobs. Legacy systems, new systems. We were going from legacy networking to new. And we needed to do this before the holiday break. That was the situation. That was the project. Right? There's a timeline. What actions did I take? I pulled so SPA, actions. I took all of the system requirements, documented them, made sure that I aligned with levels and tiers and versions, coordinated with all of the cross-functional other teams across the organization to make sure that what I was proposing and that what we were planning were there. And then I coordinated the schedule, the results. The weekend we decided to do this, there was a massive snowstorm. So I had not taken into account some people might get into our offices late. Some people might not be able to make it. But because of, telephony and everything else, we were able to, but I had to live in the office for a day plus, and then I had to stay at my boss's house who lived like almost literally across the street. For a day, but we got it done. So the result was the planning and the execution. We were able to do a massive network conversion, protocol conversion, and keep all the data systems and everything else up and running without any downtime that impacted the business. Tell a story. That was a long version of a story, but one weekend, time boxed it. That's a quantifiable. In less than 3 days, we were able to restructure technically or otherwise. So when I tell folks, tell me a story, but the quantifiable, the result, right? That's important. And the qualifiable, I could have just said, yeah, we did a networking conversion for protocols and network stacks. That doesn't tell me what I accomplished. Just tells me what was accomplished, right? We had a team of 12 people to come in and repatch and read, right? So you throw in some of the other quantifiables. Why is that important? because that's the mindset you have to put into when you think about how the business runs. Tell me the story of what it means to the business, not what it means to you, because you want another check mark in one of your certification domain coverage, pieces. So understanding the business and what motivates them, right? You got to be able to tell the story in simple language. And that's the business ask. And then you can go back to your team and speak Ferengi, right? You can go back and go into, the details, right? Yeah. But it's that layer that you have to level up. So yeah, you have to hop on conferences. You have to listen to people. You have to figure out what that translatable, quantifiable language is. For you, on one side, it could be the mean time to recovery, or on this side is, yes, we've minimized our downtime to 12 seconds, right? Very different conversations you're having, but the same results.
That framework is powerful. I think it's powerful for, especially the security leader that's wanting to present to more diverse audiences like CISOs. But it's also good for the person that's trying to break in, because one of my biggest struggles when I was interviewing, and still is to this day, is telling a story about how I have displayed competency. Like, that is extremely hard for someone like me. Like, I could tell you stories about my experience, but when you ask about how does my experience relate to me having domain experience in attack surface management, I don't necessarily tell stories that well, but your framework, I think, really highlights how you could do it in any situation.
That I'm not kidding you. I just loaded up this resume just before our call because I'm helping out a colleague. This is an example of a qualifiable entry in their resume. Now, if I put it, I'm going to read it in present tense. Develop runbook that is action for urgent and high risk cloud issues established the remediation task force to activate and collaborate with application teams to drive identified risks to a resolution. Now, if you can read your resume, your pitch to the board or anything else, and it sounds like a job requirement, then it's not a quantifiable win. It's not something that is pinned to what you accomplished or what you want to accomplish. They do have a sprinkling of other metric-based, bullet points, but what you just told me was, the description of the project. That was it successful? Did you do it in time? Did you time box it? Did you do it ahead of schedule? Right? Did you do it under budget? Did you do it under resource? This doesn't tell me anything that jumps out at me about, wow, this guy does some great shit.
When we first spoke, you mentioned that there's a possibility of you going back to work for larger companies. And, I'm the same way. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm an entrepreneur to build myself and to build ideas and to build value. And if someone buys my company or gives me an offer I can't refuse, I'm going to be called into action. And it sounds like you're kind of in that state. So, what are the things that you're going to deploy as your strategy to land something that, really holds weight to what you've done and also honors the value that you've created over the years? So, having worked at 3 media agencies, 3 financial service institutions, CPG, manufacturing, right? Being the, as I like to classify myself, the expert generalist, I came to the realization in May. I was like, how about I pull it all together, cross over to the dark side and coach, train, and help execute on cybersecurity, whether it's a product pitch, a sale or pipeline, but also the implementation side of it, right? So it's a combo platter. Am I a field CTO, field CIO, field CISO? Am I internal coach and development person in HR? Yep. Because guess what? If you hire one person to do that, that's great. They may do a fantastic job and they may do it as short. But if you can hire somebody who has enough experience across all these platforms that I can start to see
the red zone started. I'm like, wait, why are we paying so much for that? I'm like, can we pull this together over here? Right. And I've done that and I love that. Right. And I love having conversations and being respectful of decisions that are being made. But I also like to call bullshit out. Right. I'm like, listen, if there's a company that is looking to do big things, change, cut, redefine, or even just validate that they're in the right approach, perfect. I'm there. If there's a company who's struggling, toxicity, or I'm there. If there's a company who just wants to pay me a lot of money, I'm there. Right. But at the end of the day, I love the challenge. And working for myself is great. Having clients, working with different groups, the give back and all these, it's phenomenal. But I kind of miss the dynamics of larger teams, the cross-functional teams, right? And I love building teams. I love building relationships. So all day, every day.
I got one more for you. You speak and coach quite a few people, I would imagine. And you said that, there's mostly younger than you, but sometimes older. If you were talking to Mel that is 3 years into the future, 3 years older than you, and giving, 3 years from now, Mel, some advice for stepping back into the workplace, what would your advice be to yourself?
You mean the advice I just gave myself last few weeks? Number one, drop the ego. Drop the accomplishments, badges, drop the certifications, drop all of it. Find a passion. Find something that you want to do for a company you want to do, right? Guess what? That might be a director level. That might be an associate. Whatever the title is, let it go. Find a passion. Leverage the network. Stay in touch and keep learning, right? So making sure you are in tune with your network, letting go of your ego, and then just expanding the horizons of what you want to approach, and then showcasing that. Write the articles, be on the podcast, be as open and obnoxious as me. Okay, maybe not so much. Half of that, right?
I know that you're absolutely going to crush it, when you go back into the workplace and maybe take on a sales role or security role, no matter the case. I know that you're absolutely going to crush it. Mel, I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for taking some time out of your busy day. Whether you're listening or watching, be sure to check out the show notes or description to connect with Mel, follow his journey, and also learn from him because he's always dropping blogs, resources, and things that help people grow. And with that, we will see everyone next time.